He loved, he lost a single dad's emotional journey of heartbreak and unconditional love. The hospital corridor seemed endless as Michael ran, his heart pounding against his ribs like a desperate prisoner. The fluorescent lights blurred above him, faces of strangers becoming smudges in his peripheral vision. His wife's name formed on his lips in silent prayer. How could what began as the happiest day of their lives now balance on such a terrifying precipice? If you've ever loved someone so deeply that losing them felt like having your soul torn apart, this story might break your heart before it helps put it back together. If this resonates with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories that explore the depths of human experience. Michael Collins never planned on being a single father. At 32, his life had followed the blueprint he'd always imagined: successful architectural firm, beautiful wife Emma, and now, finally, a baby on the way. They had painted the nursery together just last weekend, Emma's laughter filling their modest suburban home as she teased him about his meticulous attention to detail. "The baby won't care if the stripes are perfectly aligned," she'd said, pressing a paint-smudged kiss to his cheek. But perfection had always mattered to Michael. Control mattered. And now, as he stood frozen in the doorway of the emergency room, he realized with crushing clarity that some things existed entirely beyond his control. "Mr. Collins?" The doctor's face told him everything before a single word was spoken. "I'm so sorry. We did everything we could." Emma had suffered a catastrophic amniotic fluid embolism during delivery, rare, unpredictable, and in her case, fatal. Their daughter, Lily, had survived. In the space of a single hour, Michael became both a father and a widower. The first night home from the hospital, Michael placed Lily's carrier on the living room floor and simply stared at her sleeping form. Her tiny chest rose and fell with peaceful breaths, oblivious to the seismic shift in their world. The silence in the house pressed against his eardrums. Emma should be here. Emma should be the one knowing what to do. The baby began to stir, her face scrunching up before releasing a wail that seemed impossible from something so small. "I don't know what you need," Michael whispered, his voice breaking as he lifted her awkwardly. "I don't know what I'm doing." The days blurred together in a haze of sleeplessness and grief. Michael moved through them like a ghost in his own life, performing the mechanical tasks of feeding, changing, and soothing while feeling nothing but the constant, throbbing ache of Emma's absence. His mother came to stay for 2 weeks, showing him how to test the temperature of formula on his wrist and swaddle Lily properly. His boss granted him extended leave. Friends dropped off casseroles and offered help. But when night fell and he was alone with his daughter, the crushing weight of responsibility nearly suffocated him. "She has your eyes," people would say, trying to comfort him. But all Michael could see when he looked at Lily was Emma, Emma who would never hold her, never see her first steps, never hear her first words. Sometimes, in his darkest moments, he resented the tiny being who had, however innocently, been part of the equation that took his wife away. 3 months after Emma's death, Michael sat on the nursery floor at 3 a.m., holding a screaming Lily who refused to be consoled. He hadn't slept more than 2 consecutive hours in days. The walls of the carefully painted nursery seemed to close in around him. "I can't do this," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I can't do this without her." As if sensing his despair, Lily's cries suddenly quieted. Her tiny hand reached up and pressed against his stubbled cheek, her eyes, so like his own, focusing on his face with an intensity that startled him. For the first time since her birth, Michael truly saw his daughter not as an extension of his loss, but as a person in her own right. A person who needed him. A person who had lost just as much as he had. "I'm sorry," he whispered, pressing his forehead gently against hers. "I'm so sorry, Lilybug. Daddy's here. I'm not going anywhere." It wasn't an immediate transformation. Grief doesn't work that way. But something shifted that night, a cornerstone being laid in the new foundation of their life together. Michael returned to work part-time, finding a daycare with providers who understood his situation and didn't judge his fumbling attempts at doing his daughter's hair or his occasional forgetting of essential items in the diaper bag. He joined a support group for widowed parents, where he met Eleanor, a 60-something grandmother who had raised 3 children alone after losing her husband to cancer decades earlier. "The pain doesn't go away," she told him over coffee after one meeting. "You just build your life around it until it becomes part of the landscape instead of the whole view." Her words stayed with him, becoming a mantra on the hardest days. As Lily grew from infant to toddler, Michael discovered parts of himself he never knew existed. He learned patience when teaching her to use a spoon, creativity when crafting bedtime stories, and a fierce protectiveness that surprised even him. He documented everything meticulously: first smile, first tooth, first steps, creating a digital album he titled "Things to Tell Mom Someday." The first time Lily asked about her mother, she was 3. They were looking through a photo album, and her small finger pointed to Emma's smiling face. "Who's that lady with you, Daddy?" Michael's throat tightened, but he managed to keep his voice steady. "That's your mom, Lily Bug. Her name was Emma, and she loved you very much. Where is she? How do you explain death to a 3-year-old?" Michael had researched this, read books, consulted therapists. But in the moment, looking into his daughter's curious eyes, all the prepared speeches fled his mind. "Your mom's body stopped working when you were born," he said finally. "She had to go away, even though she wanted more than anything to stay with us. But she loved you so much, Lily. She picked your name. She painted your room. And I see her in you every single day." Lily considered this with the solemn thoughtfulness unique to children. "Is she in heaven?" "I think so," Michael said, though he and Emma had never been particularly religious. "Somewhere beautiful, watching over us." Lily nodded, apparently satisfied. "Can I have apple juice?" And just like that, the conversation shifted, though it would return many times over the years in different forms, with different questions, as Lily's understanding grew. When Lily started kindergarten, Michael faced a new challenge. The mother-dominated world of school volunteering, PTA meetings, and birthday parties made Emma's absence feel fresh again. At the first parent-teacher conference, the teacher innocently asked, "Will Mrs. Collins be joining us?" Michael had become accustomed to explaining his situation, but it still stung each time. The other challenge came in the form of well-meaning attempts at matchmaking. Friends, colleagues, even his own mother suggested it was time to move on. The kindergarten teacher, Ms. Patel, was single and had clearly taken a shine to both him and Lily. The new neighbor across the street, recently divorced, brought over cookies with transparent intentions. "I'm not looking to replace your mother," he assured Lily one night after she asked why he didn't have a girlfriend like her friend Zoe's dad. "I know, Daddy," she said with the wisdom of a child who had grown up faster than her peers in some ways. "But maybe you get lonely sometimes?" The question pierced him. Did he get lonely? Of course. The empty side of the bed still felt wrong after all these years. But he had built a life centered around Lily, and the thought of disrupting that carefully constructed balance terrified him. It wasn't until Lily was 8 that Michael allowed himself to consider opening their tight circle. Rebecca was the mother of Lily's best friend, a widow herself who understood the complex emotions of parenting through grief. Their friendship developed naturally through playdates and school functions, neither pushing for more until they were both ready. Their first official date ended with an emergency call from his babysitter. Lily had a fever of 103. Rebecca drove him home, helped him administer medicine, and sat with him through the night as they monitored Lily's temperature. When morning came and the fever broke, Michael realized something profound: the right person wouldn't ask him to choose between his past and his future. They would understand that Emma would always be part of their story. "You know," Rebecca said months later as they watched their daughters playing in the park, "I think they would have liked each other. Emma and David. David was her late husband. Emma would have appreciated your organizational skills," Michael replied with a small smile. She always teased me about my color-coded calendar. It was the first time he had spoken of Emma so casually with someone he was dating, without the weight of tragedy hanging on every word. It felt like breathing freely after years of shallow breaths. When Michael proposed to Rebecca on Lily's 10th birthday, with Lily's enthusiastic blessing and involvement in the planning, it wasn't about replacing what he had lost. It was about expanding the circle of love that had sustained him and Lily through their darkest days. The wedding was small, held in their backyard with both their daughters as maids of honor. During the ceremony, they included a moment of remembrance for Emma and David, lighting candles in their honor. There were tears, but they were not only tears of sadness. "Dad," Lily said that night as he tucked her in, now a rare privilege for a preteen who usually insisted she was too old for such rituals. "I think Mom would be happy for us." Michael's throat tightened. "What makes you say that?" Lily shrugged, her expression thoughtful beyond her years. "Because she loved you. And when you love someone, you want them to be happy, even if you can't be there to see it." In that moment, Michael saw not just his child, but the young woman she was becoming, compassionate, wise, resilient. All the qualities he had tried to nurture in her, some inherited from him, many from Emma. "When did you get so smart?" he asked, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. "I had a good teacher," she replied with a smile that was purely her own. As their family expanded, Rebecca's daughter Zoe becoming the sister Lily had always wanted, and eventually, a half-brother named James joining their blended family, Michael found that love wasn't a finite resource. It grew to encompass them all, including the memories of those they had lost. On Lily's 16th birthday, Michael gave her a special gift, a leather-bound journal filled with letters Emma had written during her pregnancy, letters Michael had kept private until now. Along with it, he included his own letters, documenting the journey they had taken together since those first desperate days. "Your mother only got to hold you once," he wrote in the final entry. "But she has been with us every step of the way. In the strength you found when learning to ride a bike after falling a dozen times. In your compassion when you befriended the new kid everyone else ignored. In your laugh, which sometimes catches me off guard because it sounds so much like hers. You are the best of both of us, Lily, and watching you grow has been the greatest privilege of my life." When Lily left for college, a bittersweet milestone Michael had both dreaded and anticipated, she hugged him fiercely at the dormitory entrance. "Thank you for being enough," she whispered. "For being both when you had to be." Those words carried him through the strange emptiness of her absence, through the next phase of parenting from a distance, through watching her navigate her own adult relationships and career choices. They had made it through the wilderness of grief together and emerged not unscarred, but whole. 25 years after that terrible day in the hospital corridor, Michael stood in another hospital room, this time watching as Lily held her newborn daughter. The circle had completed itself in the most beautiful way. "We're naming her Emma," Lily said softly, looking up at him with tears in her eyes. "Emma Michael Collins." As he held his granddaughter for the first time, Michael felt the presence of his first love as tangibly as if she were standing beside him. Not as a ghost or a painful memory, but as an essential thread in the tapestry of their lives, lives that had continued, grown rich and full, without ever forgetting. Love, Michael had learned, was not a single chapter in life's story. It was the ink in which the entire book was written, flowing through loss and renewal, connecting past to present to future in an unbroken line. And in that continuity, he had found not just survival, but profound joy. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories of resilience, love, and the incredible human capacity to rebuild after loss. Remember that even in our darkest moments, love remains, transforming, enduring, and ultimately, saving us.